Hey folks, Nick Tockert here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Before we get into it, I need to thank some people, pay some bills. The Historical Fencing Guild is brought to you with the love and support of our good friends over at the Independent Creator Directory. That's IndieCD.org, your one-stop shop for the best and the brightest authors, artists, and musicians. We are also made possible by sales of the Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear, part of our ongoing series of Western martial arts manuals designed to help you go from having never handled a sword to teaching the art to others. And especially right now, we are also made possible by IndieCD.con3. It is a free convention held in lovely Fowler, Indiana, where authors, artists, and other creatives like myself are coming together to have this wonderful opportunity to interact with the public, sell folks, let people get their start in doing the vending side of things. And it is a chance to meet me in person at, that will be March 7th, 2026, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 410 South Aid Way, Suite B, Fowler, Indiana, 47944. All right. Hi and hello. We got some comments. Let me double check on those real quick. Oh, hello, Sarah. I wasn't planning to do a live stream today because up until about an hour ago, we were absolutely buffeted with winds, and both my internet and my power were flicking in and out. So at any point, this stream could crash. However, I really want to be putting out content of service while I make some next new materials happen. I recently, and we're going to get into it, as part of the issues I had this morning on my other show, Never Mind the Furthermore, I was able to enter through my phone as well as the standard computer entry, which means I now have the opportunity to have two cameras after a fashion that will allow me to give better angles on either sparring practices or demonstrations. So I am very excited to try to work out the nuts and bolts to see if I can get that to work well for the intended Patreon videos and the demo programs. Because being able to look at things from multiple angles will very much help people's understanding of what we do. So I will be tinkering with that behind the scenes. Now, beyond that, I had a couple interesting questions come through the different venues that I participate in. So you're going to have, my Facebook, my wandering Twitter, not Twitter, God, no more Twitter, Reddit, and a few other places. One of those questions pertained to a gentleman who is finding that the HEMA-style gear is simply beyond their economic means. How could they make gear? Therefore, what I did was I gave a whole layout. And it was a useful enough lecture, useful enough breakdown that I wanted to do that for you guys. I may end up having to retitle this stream, but I'm going to do this. Oh, hi, Houston Dave. Off the cuff, much as I did when I responded to him, because I'm not going to bring up the actual message. It's not that important. But what is important is being able to sort out and explain some things. So, nope, I don't want that set up. I need to add to stage. I want that one. Cool. The question that was posed to me was, ooh, that's a lovely color, but not what I need. We'll just go black for now. Keep things simple. How? There is a second thing to make a gam. I think there's an E in Gambison. I can't remember. I'll be honest, my spelling's never been my strengths. No, I could do that if that's something you want after this, if everybody's friendly. But make a Gambison / here. There we are. Give me an eraser with some guts to it. There we go. Padded armor jacket. Largely because the prices of them have gone up ridiculously high. So, to answer this question, we have to understand, one, what type of, I love this pen, but where did it go? It's lagging a bit. That's way too small now. There we go. Arms is it pairing with? Now, the reason we have to do this is because your armor always has to match your arms. In the real world, it was a give and take. Until you had the advent of practical, effective firearms on the battlefield, armor really was ramping up towards more and more heavy, more and more protective. But when firearms started piercing through it as relatively easy as they did, it negated. Sorry, that should be a width. Against. Okay, so we're going to go under the settings. Steel. Blades. Bladed fencing. Swords. This is anything from foils all the way to schlagers and heavy sword, practical rapiers. If you're going to do that, and I may just draw some of my favorite swords after, because that could be a real nice refresher. Because we're going to be academic for this first portion. I would borrow from SCA and here. It's the Light Marshal's Handbook, but we're just going to say borrow from SCA. 4 layers of trigger which is a tough canvas-like material. This is going to reverse broken blade, because that's the big concern that these guys are talking about. All these weapons, with the slight caveat of the sabers, are primarily thrust. So they're primarily thrust. So that's what you're going to need to protect that. Because again, the concern is broken blade. However, wear a plastron. A plastron is a thin piece of usually HDPE style plastic or aluminum for the Brits, chest plate. Because many of the weapons, the jackets that are designed to absorb, to prevent a broken blade from getting into you, these are the fencing jackets that you can buy, things like that, are not designed to prevent heavily concussive force. Now, when you're dealing with things like, especially the lower end, your collegiate style fencing swords, foil, epee, saber, the amount of force is considerably limited. If you are fighting epee, musketeer blade, Schlager definitely, and then practical rapier equivalents, they're much heavier blades, larger points of impact, but the force transferal is monumental. I cannot undervalue a plastron or chest plate, which we will go back to later. That would be enough if you're doing that. However, if you are doing concussive fighting, this is going to be akin to SCA heavy, HEMA, we'll say two-handed. This is long swords, long swords, etc. Now we're in a different place. Now you need an actual padded gambeson. Found some people, lost some people. That's okay. Historically, the padded jackets were, you make a jacket with two or more layers, sewn channels, that were stuffed with fabric, hair, wool. Again, anything to give you padding. Now, if you're doing that and you're going emulating after like the specs jackets, couple things. One, an old buddy of mine in the SCA, instead of filling the channels with this stuff, used soaker hose. Cut portions of soaker hose. I gave him a very sturdy jacket. I prefer in my designs to use, again, decent fabric that has pockets to hold closed cell foam. Stuff like Camp Pad. You also can insert HDP. Oops, sorry, my dyslexia is getting me. HDPE or aluminum plate. You could go with steel. You could go with other materials, but either HDPE or aluminum are not going to rust. And if they're in a pocket, they're contained. That's for all your flat portions, the planes of your body. On top of that jacket, you're either going to want to have tie downs and craft your own bracers and elbows, possibly pauldrons, so you could have the upper arm plate as well, depending on how ornate you make your pauldron. All of these can be attached with ties or eyelets that allow like paracord to go through. And that will give you a great reasonable base to your armor. So you have that as an option. Knowing that that can work means you can stack it. So what you can end up with is a pattern that looks, when it's viewed, something like this. Okay. Now, I like a double-breasted front. So you're going to have your front, and it's going to come down. Your sides can come down longer, assuming you keep some fullness in the hip area. Now, I'm drawing basically the clearest design I can think of offhand. Because I was asked to do this, I'm going to do it. I'm going to at least talk through. In the jacket itself, if it has a double I went to erase it with my finger. I've been doing so much dry erase work lately that I went to erase it with my finger. We'll just do it like this. It's double-breasted. Industrial Velcro here. And industrial Velcro here. Possibly some physical buckles along that side, right? In here, so we are looking down on the coat. I don't put the shoulders. I'm going to open it up a bit for you guys to get an idea of what I'm talking about. It, of course, isn't going to be perfect, but I want you just to at least see. An inner pocket. Foam panel. Outer pocket. Plate. Now, you can use a similar method to have plates attached either internal or external to the sides. Bracers, pauldrons. All this then can get swallowed and covered by a gorget, which I will be doing a new video in the very near future because I need to make some more. Probably after IndieCD.com, but afterwards I will be doing some crafting. Of course, I may get a wild hair up and do some leather crafting. All right. For myself, I am looking at the assorted, and some of the designs look like this, cooling vests, because I am medically extremely susceptible to heat now as part of some conditions. I have to look at how to work through it. But these are actually variants available on Amazon, so they should be able to get most places. Haven't quite figured out the right one. We're going to work on this, or I may just simply get the inserts and put them in the inner lining and then put attached foam to the back. To attach foam to plate. The rigid crafting materials that you could use for your plates. Let's go over that real quick. You can use steel, but rust will be an issue if not coated. Aluminum. And we'll have to get into gauges. Thank you. I wouldn't go, I'd say no thinner than 18 gauge. Aluminum, you're going to want sheets about 3/8 of an inch. Yeah, we'll just say that. You can purchase that. Purchase or scavenge legally. I'm going to say this, guys. Read me on this. I'm even going to get big. Okay? Acquire your aluminum legally. Do not steal street signs. Do not raid road construction places. Acquire your metal legally. Okay? Okay. Okay, we're going to just go back to how we were. Nope, that's not how we were. That's how we were. Okay. Legally. Street signs. These could also street sign material that you legally got is great for making guards on weapons and possibly shields. Okay? But you want to acquire it legally. And these guys, you definitely want to paint. Just spray paint it, guys. Let me get rid of that last part. Get the stuff that says 2X. It's a spray paint company. This won't make sense, but cheap spray paint is not worth the price. Do you understand what I'm saying? You may not, but cheap spray paint is not worth the price. Okay? Even if it's internal, spray paint it. Any metal, round, all corners. And consider a nibbler, which is a type of tool you can get reasonably inexpensive from any big box store for sheet metal. Or Beverly shear. Throatless shears are amazing. I finally have one. I get to put it to use. Okay? Another metal you can get is brass. It usually needs to be backed by leather. Backed by leather. It is beautiful if done right. You can use leather. And you either have water hardened or wax hardened. And it's sold in ounces. It can be a big thing. I actually have to, it's been long enough that while I can work with it, do I remember the values? No. So I'm going to have to go look up all the weights and redo the procedures before I get into leather. Not that I haven't done it, it's just I haven't done it in a long time. And the reason for that, HDPE. Oh my gosh, game changer. You will most likely find it in 55-gallon blue or white barrels. Get food safe. Some hinky things have been stored in these things, but you can use that to make very nice plate material. Okay. I love it. It can be plates. It can be guards. It can be with backing, usually shields. I used to have a large stack. Due to calamity, I lost them. Working with HDPE, goggles, N95 or better. Long sleeves. Because when you cut this stuff up, it's little shards of plastic. And my friends, you do not want little shards of plastic in your lungs. Take it seriously. We are literally building PPE, personal protective equipment. Let's use the right stuff. I don't want you guys getting sick. You can do it with hacksaw, jigsaw, and drills. It's relatively easy to work with. I will recommend, depending on what you're doing with it, getting an eyelet setter or grommet, depending on the size of the holes. I think it's 2 M's of grommet. If not, you guys know what I mean. Setter. This could go in. These go into leather too, but again, like I said, I'm going to do leather as its whole thing. This is so that when you do holes in the material, you can reinforce them And they're basically these two-piece metal things that curl around, and they make a cylinder that is flattened to the outside like a flange, and that lets rope or whatever material is passing through it pass through it without grinding away at the plastic. It's a very good thing to have. HDPE can also be bought in sheets, usually black. Do not shoot. What's the plastic? ABS. Do not use ABS plastic. ABS plastic is really great for certain kinds of projects. It's kind of like Kydex. Kydex is better than ABS, but anyway. But it becomes very brittle in the cold, and you do not want your armor becoming brittle in the cold. Suitable thickness of HDPE, I've never had a problem with that. Okay. Why? One, why HDPE? One, you can mass produce plates easily. So you can cut plates out, lace them together as lamellar, and make relatively flexible, relatively adjustable body armor, primarily, or at least the hard portion, out of, again, our buddies HDPE. HD. Remember the D. Anyway. B. And cardboard. $5.50. Great stuff. The benefits are you can do that out of this to cheap compared to the other materials, especially since it's relatively easy to scrounge. It's very cheap, very effective, and heat malleable. This is where it gets to be sweet. Because with either something akin to a toaster oven or heat gun, you can really get very nice shapes out of HDPE. Wonderful shapes. Which is really good if you're making, something like a bracer, which before it's fully lashed up would look something like this before you lace it, or use rivets and leather, because rivets are your friends. And leather, or nylon strapping. There are options, but adding heat lets you shape it. So you can essentially take something shaped like this, put a hole there, put a hole there. We're going to make this hole bigger for a second. Heat shape it to be like this. So you heat it up, place it over a form, something that is heat tolerant, and it will take the shape so that it looks more like this. Sorry, I have to represent the three-dimensional. And then later you can add things. So you heat it, and then just put in water, like a bucket of water, like you would, like you're quenching metalworking. It's a very similar process. So simple armor like elbows, you can put a gentle bend right here and then attach those to get a nice elbow cup. You can find patterns. A lot of the metal patterns you can convert over to HDPE depending on the thickness you're using. And it will take experimentation, a bit of learning, but really handy stuff. This is things I want to do. Again, it's been too long. Unfortunately, I lost a lot of my stuff in the fire, so I'm still working on things. But with all that, you can make a lot. Now, some of it can be equipment intensive. It's like I have a set of mild steel bracers that are tucked away that I won in a bet, actually. It was a skill-based bet, so it wasn't gambling. That I want to mount at least one of them onto a board and then have a little resting feet for it, although it would make more sense to do it to both of them. Okay, fine. That way I can just put fabric or something to keep the plastic from sticking too bad. And I can heat the plastic over that to get the shape and make it consistent. I still need to do that. That's on my to-do. This is going to be the spring and summer of crafting for me. It really is. But when you start to get techniques like this, it transfers over to, again, guards, which transfers over to, okay, we can cut a circle out, reinforce it on the edges, add some strapping, simple shield. It's basically a giant big plastic button. Not that hard. This is all doable, but you have to keep mentally flexible. Now, oh, I forgot to add a thank you. Houston Dave, if he's still here. Hi, Dave. If I were to draw my favorite swords, personally, would probably be a Tizona and a Bilbo / Caribe. Oops. I think that little check mark goes there before about. A Tizona is the classic cup hilt rapier. Usually a very long rapier. 38 over 40 comes down. Standard cup. Maybe a knuckle duster if it is right. Maybe 3 of them if it's like mine, because I love it. Moderately findable. Bilbao is much more difficult for me to express because it goes like this, and there is a quillion that comes out and usually angles down in line with this. This part curls all the way down to the guard, and you see come out and often up over here. Further, these, and this is where my great guilty pleasure often shorter broadsword blades. $24 to $32, maybe. This, pardon the lack of straightness, this is my baby. This is bread and butter. The reason I like these far more than, give me a second. Wow, nothing is coming off straight. Than something with a minimalist guard or a ring guard or a nagel is simple hand protection. The other thing you'll see often are things with a dish and like a quillion, but there's no depth to it. So it's very shallow and you can't get a finger under there. You'll see this in a lot of court swords. The goal is always, and I can show it better here, the keyhole grip. I have weak hands and wrists. I have nerve damage. That gives the most comfort, the most versatility. I can write my name in cursive with it. That should have been a little straighter. My problem with swept tilts, which, oh god, can make me draw a swept tilt. Okay, let's see. Because you have like a bar that comes down here, which is usually fairly sensible, and then bars that will come up around, and they can get very ornate. Honestly, I suck at drawing them. And then like a bar up here. Okay. Swept. So we're going to go, yay. Check. Yay. Check. Swept. Okay. My problem with these are heavy. Relative. It's a lot more metal bar stock. Not where I like. To offset that, the pommel has to be heavy or it's very, the balance is off. And it has openings. Openings. Yeah, just yeah. Yeah, brother, yeah. For the style that I tend to fight, I live between here and here. I will have to mention a sail guard or a main gouge style guard that you see on a lot of parry daggers. They're great on parry daggers. I'm not overly fond of them on regular swords. But these, like I said, these two are my bread and butter for single sword. This has slightly better protection. Pro. This has plus versatility. Whatever. That hurts. Anyway. We'll do that. Because it's much easier to do a blade transfer with a cup hilt than it is with a Koepp. Both of these are Spanish. Both of these are correct. Okay, these are correct swords. They just make sense. I would rather have more protection on my hand than less. I would rather have a weapon that is comfortable to wield over time and has some type of advantage. There are some people who would say that this might be this is not a true sword. This is not a it's not fair. The ancient blades are better. I'm looking at you, Silver. And not just because I'm reading Thibault right now. Silver makes valid points, especially as a short-handed guy. That's why for me, the Koepp is the best. And I have to use the Koepp because if I say Bilbo, everyone sees a Bronze Age, primarily Celtic leaf-bladed sword or dagger. And that is not what I'm looking for. Not saying they're bad. They're quite nice, but they're not this. A cutting blade that has enough stout to control, that's long enough to be a viable threat, but short enough to use indoors and in relatively confined spaces, with hand protection so that it's essentially the exact same as using the early oops. That won't make sense to you guys. Yeah, the sword. Yeah, I was right. Okay. Early rapier fighting was very much bringing the buckler and the sword together. The buckler was the hand protection. So, however, let me just do that and make it easier to see. Why not just put them sticky sword plus little buckler, and I love my little buckler. I have a little buckler. Equals cup hilt. Okay? I hope that at least answers my preferences. If not that, I'm okay with saber guards. and their variances. Small swords are interesting. So saber, if it's protected, small sword can be, you know what I mean? In that very often it's very similar to a light rapier, just easier to carry. The problem being, tend to be ornate. Either black quillion, but that's a G, not a Q, Nikolai. Quillions or keyhole. They're very efficient, very precise. Weak forte. And yes, I am going to call it forte. Some people told me it should be fort. Those people are wrong. Now, there is an interesting option in that front that needs to be discussed, in that it is not pretty, but it is fascinating. And this is really, truly an excessive version, but it's not that far from what ones you will see online. So I've done it excessively, but Cole, something, which is a transition. They're interesting. I'd have to handle one. I might really like it. But I am a bit more fond of the cut, so I find myself, why not again go back to Caribe Bilbo? If I'm going to have something, why not have something that does it right? Other swords I love. Any form of, oops, I was so close, and then I lost it on that line. Of Dusick. Hanger. Messers. They all boil down to essentially, that's not a sword, that's a big knife. And the logic behind it being the way certain firearms companies work to bypass the ATF today, Messers bypassed the ATF of yesteryear. Because only nobles could carry swords. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. And to them, a little bit of my favorite history lesson. A sword it wasn't so much length, it was hilt, pommel guard in the simplest fashion. But a knife, and very often, and we're doing it kind of exploded, so we'll have to, was two-edged, right? A knife, single edge, instead of having a pommel, the tang of the knife is, a hilt is flanked on either side by scales, just like a butcher knife today. So, not a sword. This delights me. The history of it delights me. The irony of it, because you'll see, hold on, got to do it right so you can just employ Messer / giant two-handed Kriegmesser, ja. Not sword. Huzzah. So this tells you that for as long as there have been weapons and rulers have tried to limit access of the people to weaponry. I'm not going to do it that way. And you'll see that today, ironically, anywhere 2 points of hystericalness. Now, I hope this at least provided some answers to the questions that were floated to me. I'm going to just save this whole thing as G notes 220. 26. That way I can come back to that later. Thank you. I don't know if you guys have any other aspects you guys want me to talk about. Let me know. If not, I still want to do crafting videos. I still want to do a few other things. We just have to get to it and deal with the assorted limitations I have that are keeping it. But being able to understand how things work and how they came to be will help you understand, how to make your own. One last HDPE project. you will need one roughly quarter to half inch thick cutting board. White plastic / HDPE. One small sheet black. Doesn't have to be black, but you're most likely to find HD. I always put the P, HDPE. That's about 1/8 thick, but greater than or equal to 8 by 3. Again, you can find pieces like this fairly easily. Either three bolts and matching nuts. Probably, it could be standard, 3/8. 6 washers. By 3/4, maybe an inch. Take your cutting board, as big as you can get, draw a blade, and that blade can be anything you want. Let's see, this is going to be 4, 3 Chicago screws. One self tap screw. Cut it out so that you end up with a piece. You want to make sure it has a shoulder to work with. This part must be wide enough to be a comfortable grip. Okay? Take a flexible tape measure and measure roughly along here. What you're going to do then is take, and you're going to make a shape that's basically a teardrop. So let me, because I started to do it curved. Okay. So a shape that looks something like this. You could drill a hole there. You can drill and cut out a rectangle the size of this part. Oh, I forgot. 2 samples of nylon flooring. Or wood. You can use these guys to make your scales, drill your holes. More organized than that, though, so let's make it prettier for you. Matching holes in the hilt. This pops on. Your scales go there. Your screw possibly. Yep, wait, forgot washer. Because we want to be nice. Washer goes in there. And you can make yourself a reasonable, fully guarded Dusek style weapon, relatively cheap. Basically, how cheaply you can scrounge these kinds of parts. I want you guys to think that way, okay? Because with the added expense of the way the world is, a guard. In this case, let me see. They sell it. It's usually about 1/8 of an inch thick HDPE. I always, please forgive me, I have dyslexia and it loves to switch these two. Anyway. But you can also use or leather or aluminum plate. Old license plate. This is one of those where we want to be flexible. And I realized I did all that off screen again. That's not the one I want. This was. So 1/8 of an inch thick HDPE, leather, or aluminum plate. The idea in part is to teach yourself to think like a scrounge. Many people who grew up with a level of applied prosperity were never trained to think this way. And it's a really, really great way to flex your mind. You could go thicker. You could go blue barrel plastic. It won't last forever. It won't be, I mean, you're not making a trainer that's going to be South Coast Arms, but it's giving you options. It's giving you different ideas. It's more important that you guys get the idea of how to craft these things for yourself than it is for you to be get caught up on the specifics. Because what I want is to create as much mental flexibility as possible. And I hope that helps. Great question, Merrick Vigunda. Forgive me if I mispronounced your name. But there are ways to acquire the stuff you need to practice in if you are not fixated on it being quote unquote perfect. And that's kind of what we specialize here. Now, if you get in an organization that has facilities, they will have standards usually. But if you're figuring it out for yourself for a while, there's no harm. I mean, you can make a slow trainer out of a single piece of wood lath for about 25 cents. Now, it won't hold up to abuse, but with that and some wood glue, I would again add some kind of scales. But you can crank out something out of next to nothing and have it work. We need to embrace creativity. If the economy is going to be difficult and the world's going to be scary, we need to think, not just think outside of the box. How can we bend the box into something else? All right, guys? But I've gone an hour and a quarter, and I am going to get probably yelled at by my family. So, guys, thank you for coming up. Oh, I'm very glad, Merrick. Save this one. If you have any questions, feel free to keep commenting here or hit me up directly. My information has been scrolling across the bottom. I do have a Patreon, but basically the Patreon funds what I'm doing here and what I'm setting up to do in the near future, because I'm going to be doing this summer. My goal is to do some limited blacksmithing and possibly teach myself low-level welding so that I can make metal guards and make my own swords and stuff, because I love them, but they don't always make what I want and they're expensive. So I've spent years getting the tools and stuff and skills together. I just need to apply them. And since my health issues seem to be holding up all right, I'm going to keep doing that. So, guys, I will be back next time this week, either with a new pre-recorded video, a crafting video type thing, or another live stream. The only one that I can guarantee I won't be here for is February 6th, because that night will be set up for IndieCD, one of the two conventions that I run. That's IndieCD.com 3, primarily for the folks involved with the Independent Creator Directory, but not solely. It's a free admission site in Fowler, Indiana. Authors, artists, creatives come together to promote your books. I do tabletop gaming. I do live on-site art for the people who come. We can talk swords and shenanigans if you guys show up. There is no fee. When I set it up, I only charge the vendors enough to help me pay for the site. And then if I get anything extra, it goes back to the vendors in forms of, hey, I picked up some food for them or something like that. And I keep it free because I want people to spend their money at the tables, not have to give it to me. So we're third year doing this. If you are in or can be in the, I guess it would be West Central Indiana area, swing on by. If not, I'll see you all soon. So guys, keep your guard up, keep your eyes open, do your drills. And thank you for supporting your local swordmaster. I will be back next week, and hope you all have a lovely night. Toodles.